What's going on, guys? This is Mr. School back again with another video. Today's topic is onward and upward, downward. Let's get into it. So I was browsing the Four Chins today, and I saw somebody post this picture here. That was very interesting, so I figured we could cover it and go through a few PowerPoint slides from that particular thread actually. So let's go. Okay. And now we have 30% of Gen Z women claiming to be sexually uninterested in men. I would say this is probably wrong. They're more probably Chad sexual, if I had to guess, but let's keep going here. There's nothing remotely normal about that number. It is a sign of a deeply decadent culture. Yep, decadence is all around us right now, so it's pretty crazy. That is a culture that lacks the wherewithal to survive. Yep. The most important thing that a generation can do is produce the next generation. You got that one right. No families, no children, no future. Yep. Like the sad part about it, that's the sad part about this, but like the snow nationalists, they are somewhat right when they bring up their assessment of the current society. Like when they talk about how we're being generationally or genetically replaced. Well, they're somewhat right because their women aren't having enough kids. Now, you can't blame it on the quote unquote brown people, but at the end of the day, it is true that Americans, by and large, and really this is just true across the entire West, that the original inhabitants of the areas that used to inhabit places like France, Germany, Britain, etc., and America to some extent, these people are being replaced by people who just flat out have more kids. It's just true. And I'm gonna get into maybe why this is a thing later on in the video. But let's keep going here. Okay. We have part two of this. I think this is from the same article. I wasn't quite sure, but I added it anyway because it was pretty interesting. Okay. First off, I agree with some of your viewers who say that the statistics you shared in your recent article title above is probably in part skewed by the increasing number of young women who identify as bisexual. I'm not sure about that, but I feel that they fail to grasp the entirety of the situation by dismissing that statistic. It is, as you said, alarming for a variety of reasons. I spend a lot of time on social media interacting with other young women my age, and many other, even in Catholic circles I follow. I'm also Catholic. Increasingly identifying as bisexual or of some degree, or at least a little bit queer. Their words, not mine. Wiser heads around me have proposed that this is part and due to female sensibilities naturally being more capable of at least considering romantic attraction to the same sex, as opposed to straight men, or straight male. But even that is only, in my opinion, part of the reality. In truth, there's some kind of increasing self-aggrandizement that surrounds the idea of identifying as a type of LGBTQ XYZ alphabet community person. It's a social marker that puts you puts you in the in crowd. It makes you cool. It makes you one of the crowd. It also makes you safe. Let's dive into that last one. Okay, but before we dive into her assessment, I actually agree with the second paragraph here a lot. One thing that I've noticed is the our society's kind of change. It's obviously changing. It's always changing, but it seems like like it seems like people are looking for something to like differentiate themselves and like differentiate themselves from the group or from the whole. And everybody's kind of coming up with their own like we used to laugh about the 25 million different pronoun crap, but now like those things are becoming more, I won't say mainstream, but they're becoming more normalized where people are actually like just making up shit now to say, oh, I'm queer. Like it's almost like being queer now is cool because it makes you different. Everybody wants to be a special snowflake, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to just say, hey, I am X, I am trans, I am queer, I am something other than straight white male or something other than straight X person. First off, I see this happening more and more the further back we step from the Me Too movement. I want to reiterate, I am a female, so my thoughts are not coming from any kind of male perspective or male influence perspectives. Here's the highlighted part here, which is really important. But I have seen an increasing number of women who swear off dating, swear off marriage, swear off kids, and especially swear off men. In the last several years, I've also seen the other side, where many women are decrying the lack of decent men to date, or decent men to marry, but that's a whole other discussion. Now, it's entirely dependent on what they mean when they say decent. if you're talking about the full package of like the Chad who somehow is not a fuckboy and he has a six-figure job and he has his own place and he works a job and he's very responsible and he's he's very smart, intelligent. Like they're looking for something that probably doesn't even exist. If by decent man they mean, hey, you're a regular guy, you're average looking, but you have a job and you work and you're a decent human being. Well, there's plenty of other guys walking around the earth, but you just don't want those men. Okay, the anti-men crowd is, in my honest opinion, is a new wave of neo-feminism that not only wants to crush the patriarchy, but also wants to be able to move in a circle where men are not just optional; they're completely unnecessary. These new feminists are also increasingly gender fluid and welcome with open arms male to female trans rights activists into their ranks. Yeah, this I can agree with. You see this a lot in the BLM movement. You see it a lot in a lot of like feminist movements in general, where they don't seem to give a fuck about trans rights, or they care about it. Like they even have their own term for women who are feminists but follow the whole trans stuff. They're called TERFs. And ironically, TERFs are actually the more rational of these two groups, but that's an aside. Let's keep going here. And just to back up that person's claim, someone else posted a picture from or posted a hodgepodge of articles and stuff like that from a few years ago, talking about this one here's not from this one's from a message from last year, but this one seems very interesting. If you look at 2019 review from P Hub here, we have women's favorite things to look at with lesbian, men's favorite with Japanese. I wonder why that is. It's got to be a lot of like white men looking for that sweet Southeast Asian poontang. Either way, we have women who are, women are looking at these particular groups here. P looking, solo male thing. Like they're looking at all these groups down here that are like, okay, well, what's causing them to look at this type of stuff versus like the regular ordinary porn? Now it could be a matter of the people who watch porn could be just flat out just be more likely to be lesbian. So it could be that, or it could be that women are just interested in this type of stuff in general, and there actually are more lesbians and LGBT people popping up out of nowhere. So who knows? Okay, and then another anonymous person on this particular thread here, they posted a chart, not so much a chart, but they posted a post about the four types of young men and women in America. He proclaims, the following. He says there's attractive young men who can have it all. They can bang lots of different women. Can then settle for an innocent girl that can properly lead and hasn't been fucked up. This is probably less likely to happen the older they get, but it's still likely. The rest of these are yeah. Then you have ugly young men. Access to attractive men scraps. Yep. Forced to focus on income as well as attractive mate. Yep. And this is increasingly becoming less and less viable because women have their own money now, and will likely have to settle for a slut or a fat woman. Yeah, it's probably true. Yeah. So he got this one right. Attractive young women can have it all with a time limit. Yeah, pretty much true. Can work or not. And not so much. They Unless they get lucky and find a dude up here who's like has it all, probably have to work still. Can date or fuck around. Yep. And someone will wife her up because she's not fat and is attractive despite her past and present undesirable traits. Yeah, she basically can't lose unless she waits too long. So there's her. And then there's our last group down here, which is ugly young women. Can fuck around and be chaste. Most of them do this because if you look at the a Juggernaut Law video, most of these chicks out here are pretty or they're probably actually worse than these women up here actually. So can change standards to include women, though an attractive one will likely never date her. Yeah. Can get with a low quality male permanently but won't. Yeah, ain't that the truth? And likely won't reproduce. Okay, and the very same guy that made this post went on to say, "We're seeing eugenics happen in real time, and it's pretty clear that ugly women are either going to be single mothers or forever alone. Ugly men have the chance to reproduce as they make themselves economically attractive by working really hard." I disagree with that completely, but whatever. I already explained that. Attractive people are generally valued despite other negative traits. Ugly women are more likely to be bisexual or attracted to pretty women because they know their chance with an attractive man is pretty much zero. Well, they know that their chances with an attractive man in order to keep him is zero, but they can still fuck him, and therein lies the problem. If they can still get, they still have access to him, they're still experiencing what we would call inflation. They're still being inflated. Their values have been inflated now. So this is what causes them not to date the ugly young men that they should be dating. It's a coping mechanism because an attractive woman will never get with them, so they will never be have to blame themselves for being undesirable to men. They just chalk it up to hot women being straight. And the ugly men, in the end, ugly men get the worst deal because they're the only group not inherently valued. Yeah, women are inherently valued and so are attractive men. No work is required for them. Yep, attractive women are only limited by their own choices, which is ironic because so many of them try to start life too early because they are so privileged. They don't think about the future, so they waste their prime years with guys who just want for casual sex. Not all of them are, of course, but it's the norm. Yeah, that I can agree with. Like these women here don't know how good they have it. Like they could get any guy they want, but because women seek a validation in general, they end up wasting so much time, like with like fuck boys up here and these fucked up dudes up here that like they end up wasting all that time with like, and they end up having to settle for someone who's not as attractive down here. So had they played their card right, they could have it all, but they end up with way less than what they could have had. Okay, then our last chart here. This is when I explained the earlier we talked about the fact that we're just having less kids in general. Where was that at? Onward, over, downward. Yeah, we're not having families, blah blah blah. Right here. Oh yeah, it's the lack of decent men to date and marry. Depending on what they mean by decent. If they mean by college degree holders, if they mean men who have a lot of money, men who are decent men. It depends on what they mean by that. But this could explain some of it. Obviously, as we become more prosperous, we tend to have less kids in general. If you look at women's, fertility by education, well, less than high school, you got a lot of kids. Once you hit graduate degree, you have one kid. You might have two, but you're likely to have more kids the dumber you are. Not the dumber you are, but rather the less education you have, the more kids you have. And this post down here kind of explains it. And with every country on Earth, you see the same effects. The more prosperous the country, the more freedom people have, including easy, cheap access to birth control. The more equal men and women are, the less children will be born. It's always the couples who have higher education that have the least amount of kids. Yep. If you don't counter that with strict family policies like banning abortion in Poland, creating actual benefits for women with kids in Russia, and families Hungary, who had I guess had the policy for this. If you don't take such measures, your people will slowly go extinct, and the most intelligent, productive ones will be first. That's true. Now, someone does respond to this guy's post with this. The prosperity aspect is severely misplaced. Home ownership is one of the big requirements for many intelligent couples. It's being pushed back further and further back in age. Intelligent couples simply have higher prosperity requirements per child, hence they have fewer kids on average on the same budget as intelligent people. As less intelligent couples, the fact these benefits are most likely financial are highly telling. Yeah, this I can somewhat agree with. I used to blame a lot of this of the birth thing on women, and it still can be to some extent. But at the end of the day, it could just be that smart people don't want to fall down the ladder, the social ladder, any more than they already have. Like having kids is really expensive. Owning a home is really expensive. And when you're only making 50, 60K a year, it's kind of hard to balance all those things and figure out how can we afford to have kids? How can we afford to have a house? How can we afford to have a car? How can we afford to have this? How can we afford to have that? A lot of this kind of comes down to like people not wanting to fall down and you know people not wanting to fail effectively. Nobody wants to fall back down the social ladder because when you grow up a middle class, you become accustomed to a lifestyle, and because you're accustomed to that lifestyle, you don't want to lose anything. So it's almost easier that, well, maybe I only have one kid because at least I know I can give that one kid a good life versus having five kids and then having shitty lives. But to keep going on with this post here, though, he continues by saying the freedom aspect is definitely correct, though. I would go as far as to say it's a social aspect as a whole, pushing people, especially women, into the notion of their career over their family, to the point that they only think about kids past age 30, and at 30, the fertility and desirability have both shrunk tremendously. And then another person responds with the following post. To explain that differently, Middle class couples have the least amount of kids because they're constantly afraid of moving down the social hierarchy. Is what I explained earlier. Very rich couples have that problem as well. Don't have that problem as well as low class couples. Poor people are already at the bottom. Excuse me. Poor people are already at the bottom, so they have the most kids because they can only move upward. And Western governments are usually strong in social welfare, giving many benefits so they don't have to starve. When you're poor, you can even benefit from kids, and that's what I think should be countered, making it less attractive for poor people to have many kids and create social consensus where it's desirable to have kids. Career is for women and not more important than family, as various polls show. And beyond this, like effectively, if you've ever seen the movie Idiocracy, this is exactly what happens. Where like all the smart people don't have kids because they wait too long, and all the dumb people have kids because they don't care. They're already poor anyway, so you can't go lower than dirt poor. Okay, all right, guys, that was Mystery School. Please like, share, subscribe. I'm sorry, I'm Mystery School. Shit, what do I keep doing that for? Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. The sources were the four chins, the brain, and never forget, guys, that wisdom is gold. See you next time.